In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Oh my god.
I know. You see. All right. What's up, everyone? So I'm back now. In Philly. This woman just turned. Can't say her age because she's gonna hit me. She's a dangerous individual. So if I die in the process of making this video, just know I'm here with good old Chante. She would like to keep her last name secure for her security reasons. But she's an ISTJ, and we're getting back with these deep dive interviews. This has been a long anticipated video. In fact, y'all would have had to wait even longer because she felt like she wasn't prepared. In fact, there's probably even a chance that in the process of making this video, she will try and cancel. Chante, tell us about yourself.
I don't know. What do you want to know?
Tell us anything. What you decide to tell us or not tell us tells us a lot about you, too.
Does it, though?
Oh, yeah.
I just don't know, like, how in depth do you want me to go?
That's an ISTJ answer. It's very vague, right?
Yes.
Do you need specifics?
Yes.
Got you. Okay. Well, what did you go to school for? How were you like growing up? What's your name? I already said it, but you know.
My name's Chante.
Just introduce yourself.
And you said growing up?
Mm-hmm. Anything interesting about you?
Well, I'm an only child. Yeah.
What do you think people would like to know about you before we dive deeper into this interview? So something to like preface this whole thing. So only child is good. Knowing your name is also good. That's helpful.
I'm really not sure.
Okay. Well, that's okay. That's what I am here for.
I'm a little camera shy. This is...
We have known each other. Oh, do you want to share that, actually? How did we meet? How did we know each other?
We met on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And he was Twitter preaching, I guess, if you will. And I don't know how long ago that was. I was in high school, right?
Yep.
I think it was my last year of high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
mine's second to last. Penultimate.
Your junior year. And I mean, what else? What else to the story? I don't know. That's how we met.
Where are you right now in life?
Right now, I was in a graduate program for physical therapy, but I recently stopped. But right now, don't know if I'm gonna go back, but yeah. I went to Howard, HU.
Represent.
Best experience of my life.
Nice. What made it such a great experience?
Because, HBCU. I don't know. It's just no experience like it. So you just kind of have to go to really understand. So.
You have to experience it in order to actually understand the true experience of it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Awesome. Thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself. ISTJ, Chante, went to HBCU.
Yeah.
And...
The HBCU.
The HBCU.
Howard University.
Howard University.
Which is the real HU.
It's the real HU. Chante said it herself.
Despite what other institutions might say. But
this is getting controversial. I would like to preface this by first of all saying a few well-known ISTJ, both in real life and in fiction. Joe Masterson from the show Twisted, Elizabeth Keene from The Blacklist, Mike Pence, the old man from Up, Mike Warren. You should. It's a beautiful movie. Mike Warren from Graceland, Katniss Everdeen from Hunger Games, Okoye from The Black Panther, Officer Jenny from pretty much any Pokemon show, Colette from Ratatouille, Mulan's father from Mulan, Misty from Pokemon. Nicola from the Black Mirror episode Hang the DJ. Avatar Kyoshi from Avatar The Last Airbender. Beyonce, actually suspected to be one from me and a few other people's research.
Which means I'm Beyonce.
Sure, we can go with that. Zazu from The Lion King. Bella from the movies, the Twilight movies. I don't know how she is in the book. I think in the book she's like INFP or something, but from the movies, she's ISTJ. And Petra Solano from Jane the Virgin.
I thought it was cilantro.
Solano.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because it's Raphael Solano.
Cilantro.
It's Solano.
How much you want to bet?
We can bet money if you
How
want
much?
to. I'm actually, never mind. I don't want to bet, but I'm pretty sure that. Okay. All right. Well, you guys are witnessing this. Make sure to look it up and see who's right. Petra Solano or Petra Cilantro. Anyway, as we've seen, there are quite a few ISTJ out there. That was just a short list, but to show how they can all come out very similarly and very differently, but no matter what, they are all underneath this umbrella that we call ISTJ. And a lot of people see it as just a 4-letter code, introvert, sensing, thinking, judging. But in actuality, each personality type has 4 mental processes or 4 cognitive functions, as we call them. And the ISTJ's cognitive functions in order, you want to go through them?
SITEFINE.
Boom. We are going to go through in this video all 4 of those functions, what they mean and how they relate to Chante.
I want to add more to my intro. Can I do that?
Possibly, sure.
I just have to think about it. I can't just say something on the spot. I could tell you more about me, but I need to know in advance what I'm gonna say.
Okay. Well, you can take this opportunity to tell us more about you now.
Well, I don't know. I'll know by the end.
Okay. Okay, cool. So the way that I defined introverted sensing, SI, also known as memory, is concerned with details, what is tried and true, and reliable. This function as a strength stores details of concrete experiences, impressions, or facts to reference and potentially replicate and/or even relive later on in the future. A person who uses this function as a strength allows their own and/or other people's experiences to bring light to their own identity. SI provides the individual with the ability to be in tune with his or her own internal physical state, such as heightened sensitivity to the fluctuation of health, hunger, and other inner body sensations. People who use this function are also often the types to also notice when things have been shifted or changed. They can seem rigid and nitpicky. Even though Personality Hacker, they nicknamed it memory, it's not all about memory, but it's more about impressions. It's more about going by what you have seen to have already worked, what you have witnessed. SI is the function that most conjoins with that saying where they talk about nurture versus nature. SI is very nurture oriented. When you look into Dario Nardi's studies, he actually said that SI users, like if SI dominants, they're the ones who, when you scan their brains, they're the least homogenous, which means like they are the least similar in how their brains like function and everything, because SI is all about what they've experienced. So they're growing up, their impressions that they've had, that makes a huge impact on their lives. And then that kind of like forms their identity. How would you say that you relate to SI? Or you see it like, operating in your life?
I don't know.
Well, I have lots.
Yeah.
Chante, I've known her for years, and all of her functions are actually like the reverse of mine. In fact, she's literally my opposite type. So if in order to know your opposite type, you change the first 3 dichotomies and keep the last one. So I'm an ENFJ, she's an ISTJ. We don't share any of the same cognitive functions, even though we have the same last dichotomy. But I don't have SI in my stack. And one thing that I've noticed with Chante is that she has to, especially being an SI dominant, my mother's an ISFJ, so she has SI as a dominant function as well, and I see this a lot with her too. They are very, very detail oriented. Chante always needs to know the details of certain things in advance. She has to be prepared for everything.
But that makes sense though, because why wouldn't you need to know the details in advance? Because you just need to know, because what if something happens?
Exactly. And that's what we're going to get into when we talk about inferior NE. But pretty much that's what it is. The SI dominant, they always want to be prepared for everything. I'm going to read a little bit from this awesome book that you guys should all get, but this is not affiliated with Personality Hacker, although shout out to Antonio Dodge and Joe Marquardt. Because ISTJs are masterful at developing procedures, they can often become annoyed with people who seem to waste energy on reinventing the wheel or who don't follow the rules. This can lead to discomfort in situations that don't have an established hierarchy or guideline. If they focus too much on precedent, ISTJs may become stubborn against all things new and even suspicious or hypercritical. So I once heard Heidi Priebe, an ENFP, so your reverse type, she has SI as an inferior function. She described SI kind of like the function that has someone sitting back and watching people cross a river on stepping stones and seeing which stepping stones work the most. So by watching other people or by experiencing it themselves, they keep a track of, okay, this is what's always been working, this is what's always been reliable, and they tend to fixate on that. But in doing that, not only do they become perfectionists in this one procedure that they have, because they just keep continuing to use that path because they know this path has never led me wrong before. If it's not broken, then why try and fix it? That's how they tend to be. And that's why they're often called traditionalists, because they like to go with what's comfortable, because what's comfortable is reliable. And for an SI dominant, they always want something that's reliable. So that's something that's kind of like a superpower with them as well. When Heidi was talking about the stepping stones and everything, the SI dominant would know, okay, from watching this so often, I know which stones will always work to get you past and which stones may not always work. And this can be applied to anything in life. Chante just so happens to have a very, very, very common sense kind of thing. It's to the point where it baffles her when other people are unable to just clearly see something for what it is. Like, that's actually one of your favorite phrases. Like, that doesn't make sense, or it just makes sense. It's obvious. Things are just obvious to her. But what may be obvious to her is not obvious to many other types.
I don't understand that, though. I don't get it.
And what do you mean by that?
Like, why, if it's obvious, why can't other people see that?
It's obvious to you. Things that may even be, well, not even may. Things that are obvious to me a lot of times, although I don't like rub it in your face, like, oh, that's obvious, Chante. Like, I think like, oh, well, I guess this is something that I just clearly understand. I just clearly grasped it, but you have a hard time like picking that up.
I don't think so. I just think if it's obvious, then everyone should kind of understand and know it. Especially if it's just a fact.
That is just a fact. Okay, what are some things that are obvious to you?
I don't know. You can't just put me on the spot. I can't think of anything right now.
Okay. Another thing that was said was, for people who use memory as a driver, living in an unpredictable or unstable environment carries a huge penalty. To avoid this kind of environment, people of your type are amazing at maintaining procedures and processes to minimize instability. So one huge example of this is from, I mentioned, I think it was Colette from Ratatouille. When you watch that movie, she was all about sticking to the recipe. There was even a scene where, I'd be forgetting their names. It's not Gustavo, is it?
I didn't see
Linguini. You have to see these movies, girl. The Up and Ratatouille.
I guess cartoons aren't really my thing.
Okay.
Unless it's Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. Yeah, so with Colette, she was coaching Linguini, a new chef in the kitchen and everything, and they were going by the original chefs, like the one who started the whole restaurant, his recipes and everything. She said that the original chef, he used to just like mess around in the kitchen and stuff, and so he just liked to improvise. And Linguini's like, okay, so then that's what I do. And then she's like, no, he improvised. We follow the recipe. And so for her, she became an expert at what was already established. She was not comfortable with just doing whatever. She wanted to stick directly to what has always worked, which was already established. And that's something that for SI dominance, because that's what they're used to, then they tend not to want to venture out. So if there's another way to cross the river, they may ask, why would we try that if this has always worked? I think that's just extra. Look, I'm telling you, these stones have always worked. Let's just continue to use these stones. Why do you want to try that vine? That vine might snap and then you'll fall into the water. Oh, why do you want to try that bridge? That bridge is probably not even all that sturdy. But you know what? I've seen these stepping stones work for the past 100 years, so I don't see any reason why we should try and find a different way to get past.
But that makes sense. Why would you if it's worked for 100 years?
Exactly. And that's literally SI. And the thing is, if you were to be dealing with an NE dom, so you have NE in your inferior as your inferior function, but an NE dom, that's the one thing that they hate. They hate doing anything that's pretty much like always been working, because they're looking for new things. It's like, okay, if this works, I wonder what other things may actually be able to work. And so that's something that, when it comes to like SI dominance, and they can really get stuck into, they don't really like to explore in that manner oftentimes. And that's why they can be seen as very traditional and rigid, because they're going off of their impressions, they're going off of their memories in that sense. An SI memory is not necessarily like, oh, you'll have great memory, but it's more so that they focus on certain details of things. And your memory, when you focus in on certain aspects of things, is actually very good. I've witnessed it. You can, when Chante's telling me a story about certain things, she will narrow down everything. And that's the difference between like an SE user and an SI user. An SE user grabs so much of everything that they can't really recall all of that. While with an SI user, they come in and then they zoom in on like one aspect of everything, so then they'll know like all of the details and all of the memories for that specific aspect. Do you relate to that?
I do.
Yeah.
But can I just say that I really love this lighting right now.
Yeah.
It kind of just did something different.
I've been waiting for it.
And I've been like noticing that as you were talking.
Yeah, same. So this auxiliary function of the ISTJ is extroverted thinking, also known as TE. The way that I define this function is concerned with getting results. People with this function as a strength often logically strategize the best optimal way to efficiently accomplish a set task, rarely considering the emotions of others or even their own emotions. This function also works with information given in the external and objective world and finds ways to deliver it in a concise manner. This function is most associated with going after one's desires ruthlessly, always paired with FI. Can sometimes appear bossy or unethical, if unhealthy, of course. So that being said, for the ISTJs, especially, they're really good at seeing things in a systematic manner and just knowing exactly what to do. So kind of like what we were just talking about, like things are just obvious to you. This is not only due to her SI dominant function, but then also TE being an auxiliary. TE just shows up at a thing and then it just knows like, oh, well, this is exactly what we have to do in order to get this done. She doesn't think it's that big of a deal, but I'm pretty sure that you guys would be like, oh yeah, that's definitely TE. Could you tell us about what you did when you when I told you about the Screw Tape Letters book?
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead.
Seriously?
I'm serious, yeah. Just go ahead and tell us what you did. You're like the procedure that you carried out.
I mean, we were talking about the book. I mean, I looked it up online, got a PDF copy, and I printed it out.
How did you print it out? She made that seem so much more simpler than what she really did.
It's really not even that deep. Like, I literally...
Then just tell us the process.
I went online, did a Google search, and printed it out. Like, I had some paper, I had some ink, a printer, obviously.
Okay. So now here's my turn. I'm not usually the detail-oriented type of person, so I might not even be able to recall all of the stuff. But what I do remember is just thinking like, wow, she really did a lot. But it was just that simple for her. Instead of going to just buy the book,
first of all, why would I buy the book?
Uh-huh.
I don't got no money for that.
Okay.
And if I did have money for that, if I can get it for free, why would I buy it?
Okay, awesome. And now we're getting somewhere. So continue to... So then what was your whole thought process behind that? Because something led you to get the PDF and then...
Well, because you were
print
talking about it.
Way.
You were talking about it, and like I said, I was going to pay for it if I could get it for free.
Uh-huh.
You know, you go through college, you get PDFs all the time for your textbooks. So I'm like, okay, it's probably a PDF. So I looked it up, and it was there.
Okay. So yeah, like I was saying, she looked up the PDF and everything, because she looked up how much the book was going to cost and everything, and then she was like, let me see if there's...
Well, no, I didn't really look up how much it would cost. Like, I didn't do any research. Okay. I just typed it in. That was it. And I was like, oh.
And then you saw how
I don't
much
really
it
want to buy
costed?
that.
Okay.
Well, even if it cost $1, like, I probably wouldn't pay $1.
Okay.
I just typed in the name of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And the PDF thing.
Okay. And then she went to go get the PDF. She calculated how much ink and how much
I did
paper.
not calculate the
Yes,
ink.
you did. Yes, you did. I remember you bringing that up.
No, first of all, no. Like, no. It wasn't... I did not calculate the ink. I was like, what? I don't know what he's talking about. I know that I said I didn't want to waste paper.
Yes.
But I didn't calculate the ink.
So she double-sided it. Very smart. And then she had a whole process behind it. Like I said,
How did I calculate the ink?
I don't know.
Exactly. Because I didn't.
I don't remember exactly what you did.
See, this is why. He doesn't remember.
Well, so like I was saying, I gave you an opportunity to tell the story.
Well, you know,
so now I'm going to tell my story without...
I'm trying to fill in the details that you clearly don't remember.
Well, clearly you don't remember
I
because...
do!
Okay, go ahead and tell us everything.
Well, you're better at, just talking.
I'm better?
You're better at talking, but I'm filling in the missing details. Remember, detail-oriented, the things that you miss.
So, she looked up the book. She typed in the book, and then she saw it. She didn't look it up. She typed in the book, and then she saw it. And she ended up seeing the price of the book. But she didn't look it up. There's a difference there.
What?
And
what
then,
are you talking about?
And then she said, oh, no, she didn't want to buy the book if she could just find the PDF. So she somehow found the PDF online for the screw tape letters.
Which is really simple.
It's very simple to Chante.
No. Anybody. Literally just type it in Google and put PDF.
And so the fact that she thought about that, like she thought about, okay, let's look for the PDF. Then I like I said, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that, I know all the details and everything. I just remember like reading the text messages and being like, wow, she brought up something about the ink. Yes, this was all.
We were on FaceTime.
No, we weren't on FaceTime. This is text.
What?
She brought up something about the ink, and then she also brought up the amount of papers that would have to be used and everything. So she double-sided it. So long story short, when you see the way that a T user goes about something, they just, if they have a desire, if they're trying to execute a plan, then they always look for the most efficient or effective way of doing it. And this is something that Chante is just very good at. If she sees that something needs to be done, then she instinctively knows, like, these are the steps that you have to take in order to do it. She's really good at finding a way to use resource and to keep her resource. Even for simple, small things, such as playing Mancala with her, it's a domination game because she's just very good at knowing how to hoard all of the thieves onto her own side. And that's very symbolic of how she is in real life. She knows how to keep all of the money and save as much money. In fact, if you're thinking about another character that could probably resemble this, although he's probably ISTJ, I would think of Mr. Krabs, who pretty much is like, I think, the secret is like, make sure that you spend as little resources as possible. You're finding the best way to use is minimal effort. So sometimes you said that you think that you're lazy, but she's also very, very industrious. So what is it about that? So tell us a little bit more about.
Because I mean, I don't know. I just am. Like, I don't want to do nothing. Who wants to do anything?
Instead of doing a lot of work, what she does is she finds the most smart way to get the task done, but in as little steps possible.
But sometimes I don't even feel like doing that, and so that's why I said I'm lazy.
But you still do it.
Not all the time. I be like trying to cut corners sometimes.
How were you liking school?
Well, I've been in school for a long time, so which part?
Right, details. High school.
High school was easy. I went past that easy. It's not for reasons of what you think.
Okay.
It was just easy because I came from a private school from kindergarten to 8th grade, the same one. Then in high school I went to a public high school, so that was a complete difference in just everything. So that's why it was easy.
Okay.
It wasn't easy because I worked for it. It was just easy.
How were your grades?
It was easy.
It was easy.
What do you think? What do you think they were?
What? No, I don't have to think. I'm not gonna speculate for once. You can just tell us. You can just say it.
Well, I got A's.
Weren't you top of your class?
Yeah, but what does that mean?
For how many years?
Well, I don't know. They came to me in 9th grade, so I guess since 9th grade.
Did that continue up into college too? How were you like in college?
Like, you mean like, do you mean academically?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know, same thing as high school.
You were top of your class?
I guess so. I don't know.
You don't know?
How am I supposed to know? It's like thousands of people.
Was it also easy?
Yeah, I guess it was easy. I guess.
Yeah. Well,
I had trouble in one class.
I wish I was like that. I had trouble in one class, but college was easy. For Chante, like I said, I've known her for a while. Yes, she was. For as long as I've known her, she's always literally been on top of her schoolwork. She's very, very self-disciplined. I remember that she said that she was going to sleep at a certain time. She was going to sleep at a certain time. And on top of that, she was very detail-oriented and structured in the sense where I remember you had a calendar of like not only when certain things are due, but you were like studying for them way in advance, and you had like certain days for when you were going to like study something and when, like how long, like time frames for how long you were going to work on each thing. And I was like, wow, like for me that was a lot, but I admired that you could do that.
I mean, why would you study for a test the night before? That doesn't make sense. I mean, it's smart to start looking at stuff the same day you learn it.
And you were able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you ain't gotta sit down and put in 2 hours, but if you look at it a little bit every day, that cut down the time you have to study when it actually comes time to prepare for the test.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is more examples of TE being able to just pursue the things like, yeah, if you just cut down this way, if you just do it in this way, then, you know, so TE is good at, even though it's work-oriented, it's finding a way to, you said like cut corners, but in actuality, it's kind of like, in my opinion, from what I'm hearing and from what I've witnessed, you just find the most optimal way to get there without using excess work, because once again, you're not only keeping resource, but you're also managing your energy. So it's like, why would you, it just makes sense that you're just doing extra work. You're expending more energy in doing it this way. You're expending more money in doing it this way, when in actuality, you could do it this way. You can save more money, you can save more energy, and you'll still get the same result or even better results. And sometimes it's not easy for a lot of people to be able to think in that way, but this is something that comes clearly to you easily. And on top of that, being that disciplined like me, I'm going to just be honest. I know that, oh yeah, you should just look over it the day that you start learning it. But I didn't have that type of self-discipline. I still don't really have that type of self-discipline. And so even though I knew it, it's not something that I disciplined myself enough to be able to carry out. But the fact that you were able to do that and stay consistent with it, which is another thing, ISTJs are usually just very consistent with everything that they do. And that was a big example. There's I think like a story that I read from one of the MBTI books where it was talking about a T user who, they're the types that if they have like a coupon for like a gas at a gas station or something, and they'll measure out like, okay, well, how much gas am I going to use to go over to that gas station, and then how much will I spend over here to do this?
That makes sense, though.
Everything about TE makes sense, and you have to understand that it makes sense.
But
the whole point is that not everybody has that function, especially as strong as you do. So what makes sense to you, what is just clear to you, is not clear to everyone else, and you can't fathom how it's not clear to everyone else because it's so strong for you. Does that make sense? Ironic. The next function that we're going to go over is FI, authenticity, introverted feeling. This is a tertiary function of the ISTJ, and essentially the way that I defined this function is concerned with internal values, ethics, and emotions, makes decisions based on what is most authentic or true to oneself. People with this function as a strength usually have a very strong moral compass and feel their emotions more heavily than they feel other people's emotions, but have spent a great deal of time understanding the depths of their own emotions enough to use it to mirror and empathize with others' emotions. Can appear aloof, individualized, and/or self-centered. So all that being said, like I said, authenticity is the tertiary function of an ISTJ. Personality Hacker refers to it as the 10-year-old. So the dominant and the auxiliary are adults, and then the 10-year-old function. So 10-year-old is still kind of like strong, and they say wise things and all of that. They're still a human being. However, you do not want them to, drive the car. How would you say that you relate to FI? Like, I'm an FE user, so if that helps, then you can show the difference between how you see, especially hanging out with me this past week, the difference between me as an FE user and then you as an FI user.
See, I don't know, though, because, I don't know. You say this weekend, like, okay, you were, like, socializing with people, trying to make people feel included, I guess. I don't know. But I feel like I was doing that too. Was I not?
Yeah, no, you were.
I was concerned about others.
Yeah.
And how they were feeling.
Yeah. FI isn't incapable of doing that. How would you define FI?
I don't know.
Okay.
Can we cut? Sorry, Denzel. I just want to get the exact time. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Just so that we can kind of know how much time we actually have. I'm almost done. Okay. The bus comes at 4:08, so we actually need to leave at 4. So we have 20 minutes.
Nice. Great use of TE. So yeah, well, going back to, you had an answer for tertiary FI. Well,
I was just gonna ask if I can have a hug.
Oh yeah, sure.
Thank you. Oh, that's so sweet.
Okay, well, I, being her friend and all, have noticed that in just the most objective manner possible, I say that she is way more in tune with her own emotional experiences than with other people's.
Right. I think that's how I would define it.
That it doesn't necessarily mean that she doesn't care about other people. It just means that it's like her self-care, her self-need, her self-value versus like other people's.
But sometimes though, I don't feel like I do that though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can elaborate on that.
Like, sometimes I feel like I do things not because necessarily like I want to do it, but because of other people, and like trying to make sure that I guess they're good and that they're okay with like I guess the decisions that I'm making for me. I don't know if that makes sense.
You do things for other people to make sure that they're okay with the decisions that you're making for yourself?
Yeah. So like it's not like always like me being in tune with like how I'm feeling, but I'm trying to I guess meet other people's needs.
So you make the decision that you want, but then you're checking in to make sure that, hey, you're on board with this decision that I'm making?
Nah. Sometimes I don't even I guess check in with me, I guess, before I kind of do that. I don't know.
Sometimes you don't check in. Okay. Well, and I guess this would explain why it's tertiary FI. Well, yeah. So one of the things that she wanted to know was she discovered that she doesn't know what she exactly like stands for. She doesn't know how she feels about certain things. And I said that was due to her not spending enough time with her FI. So she doesn't know herself enough to know like, okay, this is what I'm actually for, this is what I'm actually against, and this is why I'm actually for it, and this is why I'm actually against it. Go ahead and clarify.
I don't know. That makes it seem like I don't have anything together. I think that on certain topics, maybe you can say that, but in a general sense, I don't know if that's true.
How would you refine what I just said?
I can't remember what you said, honestly.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. My memory's so bad, but it didn't sit with me. It didn't resonate with me.
It's okay.
That's all I know.
Yeah. And I feel like probably that's another sign of tertiary FI. Like, oh, I don't really know the details behind it, but I just know that I don't relate. Like, it just didn't sit with me. Like, so you try it and like, no, it just doesn't feel right. Oh, well, what doesn't feel right about it? I don't know. It's just something that doesn't feel right. Why as opposed to somebody else who may have stronger FI, like FPs, ISFPs, INFPs, ESFPs, ENFPs. If you ask them, like Jamila, for example, like, she'll be like, no, that's not right. And then she will pretty much in detail explain herself. So that's kind of like what I mean by like...
Well, I think that if I could actually remember verbatim what you said, then I could tell you why. But I just really don't remember. I know you said it literally like a second ago, and like if we replayed this, like I would know. But I just...
Do you know like what your ideals and passions and values are? And did you have a hard time discovering them?
Yeah, I had a hard time discovering them. I think I'm still trying to figure it out.
Why do you think that they were hard to discover?
I think that I just didn't have enough time to think about it. You know, just being in school and always being busy. And then, you know, that's kind of, I guess, why. I mean, you know, there's things growing up that, you know, I had, but I don't really do those things anymore. Like, I used to play sports. I used to do graphic design, web design. You know, I don't really do those things anymore. I could probably pick it up and figure it out, but everything just changed so quickly. And right now, right now I don't know if I would feel like learning that, you know. So.
Okay. Would you say that you really didn't have time to do that, or more so you didn't make time because you valued getting work and everything else done? So it's like,
I didn't have time.
What else were you doing? to like fill up that time instead?
Um,
Like I know that you mentioned school, so would you say like that was like all like
school is a full-time job.
Mm.
I was studying, eating, you know, self-care, kinda, not really, but you know, trying to be social a little bit, you know, with the people that you connect with. But you know, college was it was a good time, so you can just find anything anytime. But aside from that, really the big part was just the schoolwork and making sure that, you know, I was understanding it, you know, getting those A's, because, you know, I didn't want to get no B's and no C's.
Mm.
So, plus I was on a scholarship, so I had to keep a certain GPA. And I forgot what it was. I think I had to keep a 3.0 or something like that, which is all B's. But why would I, you know, let up a little bit to hopefully get B's when I could just get A's?
Yeah, so I think circling back to my original question.
Yeah, I totally forgot. What was the question? What have we been talking about?
No, the original question was like, would you say, because you said that you didn't have time to discover that. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that the way that I'm interpreting it, and like
no, I know how you're gonna say.
Okay.
You think that, oh, like it was just the work was more important, and so I didn't make time. No, that's not it. I literally had to do the work though, because, okay, it's easy to say that in retrospect, but when you actually in the situation, it's like you don't know, you can't predict how you're gonna perform on an exam or something like that. So you have to put the work in.
You have to be prepared.
Yeah. So I can't say, oh, you know, I think I'm good enough to get a B or, you know, a A or whatever, and then like chill out. It's like, no, I actually could fail this because I don't know where I stand right now, and I won't know until I actually take this test. So I feel like that, I feel like I just didn't have the time. It like, not so much that I didn't make time, but I really didn't have the time.
I get that. And I'm still going to say what I was going to say, but more so not negating what you're saying, but more like speaking from an FP's perspective. So first of all, so higher FI users, it's funny that you said that you want to be prepared. Not that all perceivers are never prepared, but they prefer to be perceivers because they're not really, they like to go with the flow. So being prepared would not, generally speaking, would not be as much of a concern for them. So they would prioritize, like, I know that I could be using this time to like prepare for this test or prepare for this or whatever, but instead I'm gonna do this other thing. I'll make time for that later, and so then they spend more time. And yeah,
like when you have so many like classes and credits and stuff like that, it's like, you know what I'm saying?
And that's why most of them end up going off into like artistic things, because it's like for them,
I like art,
and yeah, you like it.
I can draw,
but I know I believe
can, like,
that
do all these creative things.
But for them, they prioritize it. That's what I mean. So when you're looking at it with them, then it's like, even though you have that capability, so me, SE tertiary, so at my SE is just as strong as your FI. We all know Tay, he prioritizes, like, I could say, like, oh, but I don't really have time to, like, go to the gym because, you know, I have to coach and I have to, you know, make these videos and I have to do that. What Tay could say is, like, no, it's not that you don't have time. It's just that you didn't prioritize, you know, going to, you know, work out as much as I do and everything. And it's like, I could still, like, we're both right. It's
so
like, well, yeah, I didn't have...
like, okay, you make time for what you want to do.
Exactly.
But sometimes that's just not true. It's just not. I really think that sometimes it's not true. You can you could probably give like a little bit of time, but if you busy. Like, I don't know if you ever been in that situation where it's like, I really want to do something, but unfortunately I can't, because I can't be at two places at one time.
Yeah, and then you have to pick sometimes or oftentimes
right,
the thing that you like, you just prioritize. Like,
but
for
sometimes
them,
it doesn't mean that, though. Sometimes it might mean that, okay, like, you neglected something, one time, and now you
I
have
think
to
for them,
give.
though, the fact that they chose to prioritize their passions and everything
Mm-hmm.
is because, and you chose to prioritize school and classwork and all of that, is because for them, they've prioritized their passions so much that they were willing to like sacrifice. While for you, it's like, yeah, I mean, I like my passions, but it doesn't make sense.
But
It
that's the
wasn't
thing
enough
too,
of a
though.
thing for you to be like,
It's
okay, let me just cut it off. Same with me in working out as often as Tay does. I work out and I know how to lift. I know how to do that. I play sports and all that too. Just like you're saying, like, yeah, I can do art. I can do that.
The question
but
is, though, is that
I won't put as much effort or energy.
Those people, though, that you're talking about, or this scenario, is that they know what their passions are, and so that's why they're prioritizing it.
Or they put so much energy into discovering those passions that now they were happy to find out what they were. So because they were able to put in that effort and that energy, just like how you were able to perform very well in school because you put energy and effort into it, so that's why you're able to do well. For them, so they could look at you like, oh yeah, well, Chante, she does well in school, so then that's why she focused so much on like continuing to do well in classes. And then you could be like, no, I focus so well in my classes and everything, and that's why I'm able to do well in school. So for them, they could say the reverse, and that's kind of like how it is.
We have 6 minutes. So, is it weird if we cut and then come back?
Sorta. But we'll see. Maybe, yeah, we'll see. Extrovert intuition is the inferior function of the ISTJ. The way that I defined it is concerned with abstract concepts, theories, as well as coming up with and exploring possibilities by looking at what has already happened, or what is already established, tried, and true. This function can appear like a triangle stemming from one idea and then birthing many different ideas to find patterns, underlying principles, and ideas for frameworks and theories as the individual talks, writes, or creates. People with this function as a strength can seem over-idealistic and dreamy-like. So, Personality Hacker called this function exploration. And although it's Chante's inferior, well, I guess I'll just say it like that. Yeah, it's Chante's inferior function. So she still has it as a 3-year-old. 3-year-olds, they can still talk. They still say wise things every now and then. That'll make you like, oh. But once again, you wouldn't want them driving the car. And they're not even still as strong or as intellectual knowledgeable as a 10-year-old. So for Chante, I see traces of NE with her at times. Like I remember when we were at SBP in 2016, and we were out on the beach and stuff, and you were just asking questions. Like we were looking out into the ocean, and she was like asking questions about like, there's so much that we don't know. Like, we don't even know what exactly is, like, out there. We don't, and you started, like, do you remember that? Yeah, do you want to share what you were saying?
Not really, because it was kind of personal.
Oh, okay, my bad.
But just basically a bunch of abstract ideas and questions that probably none of us can answer.
Yeah, so kind of like what we were saying earlier with the stepping stones and everything. So if SI wants to focus on just using those stepping stones, NE, so an NE dominant, they want to avoid using the stepping stones. Yeah, I know those stepping stones are there. I know they're going to work, but that's boring. I want to use that vine. Yeah, I know there's a possibility that it might snap, but what if it doesn't? And so I feel like that's an example of SI NE polarity in that sense. Another big example of how NE is not really like as much of a strength. Like, how do you feel whenever I use like metaphors and
oh my God.
Yeah, you
It'd
can
be
go
so
ahead and
annoying.
complain.
Like, oh my God, like it just be extra for no reason. Like sometimes it's just not necessary. Just tell me what you're talking about. That's
and
it.
why is that?
Because you're using too many words, doing too much, using too much energy. Just say what you want to say. Leave it at that.
Yeah. And so I think that, and now that we've gone through like all four
and
functions,
it takes too long. Did I say that? It takes way too long. Like just say what you want to say.
And then it's funny because for me, when she's telling me things sometimes, it's either taking way too long because she's putting in too much detail. So for me, like, I could be annoying her by putting in too much symbolism and abstraction, and she's like, what does this mean? What does that symbolize? What is that? What is this? And then for her, it's like, okay, why are you telling me that the time that this happened and what color shirt this guy was wearing, or I don't understand where all of this is relevant.
First of all, you never complain about my storytelling.
I don't complain.
And I'm good at your symbolism or whatever, for the most part. I don't think I usually ask too much, like, what do you mean by that? Unless it's, like, really weird. I'm like, I think mainly it's just, like, why, just tell me what you're talking about. Like, is all of that other stuff is just extra.
You guys have always heard me, reference ISTJs and, no offense. She already knows this, but, like, they're the type that I least mesh with, and most ENFJs attest to that. And then same thing with ISTJs oftentimes. It's like a reciprocated thing. In socionics, they're known as conflict types, the ENFJ and the ISTJ. Same thing with INFJ, ESTJ. You have the typical Arnold and Helga relationship there, where Arnold from Hey Arnold is INFJ and then Helga's ESTJ. I think it's kind of like the same thing. What makes you feel is the biggest reason why we probably didn't get along oftentimes, or don't?
I think we get along pretty well, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Now you want to say that?
Now you want to say that?
Well, no, I'm just asking. Would you say that we always got along pretty well?
No.
Okay. All right. Got you. So why do you think that was in the past? Like, what did most of our conflicts resolve around? And this isn't like, playing blame game or anything. Just like stating like where was our misunderstandings and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We were talking about cookies. And for me, when I was talking about, like, I can't really remember it, but I'm probably putting the screenshots right now for you guys to see it. It was a whole conversation about cookies, and as you can see here, I thought that she knew what I was talking about, but she was just continuing to speak more literally. So then I was continuing to speak more abstract until we get to the point where she was like, well, I don't like cookies, or like she was just pretty much like, what are we talking about? Do you remember that conversation?
I do, but yeah, I remember it, but I don't remember what we was talking about, because yeah.
Alright, well, we will be right back. Chante is on a schedule. We're 1 minute late, so we will be back after these short messages. We're back. We went to church. We went to go get Philly cheesesteak in Philly.
Except nobody in Philly calls it Philly cheesesteaks. So that's how you know he's not from here.
That's how you know I'm not from here. We've stated the obvious. Now that we've gone through the 4 cognitive functions and everything, we would like to speak more about our dynamic. And from there, I think that you can further understand the ISTJ personality. And I'm reminded in this moment of a story that Joe Mark Witt told about an ISFJ, so same dominant and inferior function of SI. And the way the SI is it has to kind of immerse itself in the experience before it's able to like understand the experience oftentimes. So the story that Joel told was he went somewhere with his ISFJ friend, and I think it was like a Harry Potter like thing in Disney World. I don't know, something like that. And he said that the ISFJ friend was like, oh my gosh, like this is just a lot. And he wasn't really mentally prepared for everything that was going on, even though he was a huge fan of Harry Potter. So Joe's like, okay, do you want to leave? And he's like, yeah, let's leave for a little bit. So they went out and they chilled for like about, I think he said an hour, hour and a half somewhere else. And then the guy said like, you know what, I think I'm actually ready to go back. So he was like, okay, cool. So they returned back and he was able to have like the time of his life. That being said, this could be symbolic of that. I think that now you understand how it's like to be on my camera, and you can show us more of your personality. And we're not going to be talking as heavily about the specific functions or following that type of structure, but it's more of like a free flow of our dynamic. But first of all, like you said, you wanted to speak about NE, so take the stage.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
Ooh, that's unfortunate.
That was like hours ago.
Okay. I have an idea about something.
What are you looking at?
I'm just gonna pull up Google and have light.
Oh, light.
Yep.
Oh, this is a little bit better.
Yeah.
Wow, look at you using your TE.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not in my immediate stack, but it's there. It is there. Alright, so you forgot what you had to say, but that's okay.
It is my favorite function, though.
Yeah. Why is it your favorite function, though?
Because it's just so, I don't know how to explain. It's like not concrete at all and very abstract. And so I just like that. It's like exciting in a way. You know? All the possibilities.
Doesn't that bring you like sort of like anxiety in a way too?
It depends on the situation, but if we're talking about, some of the things that maybe we've talked about before, that doesn't bring me anxiety.
Yeah. Usually when it's in an inferior position with ISJs, they can have a very anxious approach to life. So
yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like routines and stuff like that, and everything.
Yeah,
but
and that's usually why they like
conversational.
routines.
I mean,
that makes sense. Yeah, because in conversation, it's in a safe place. It's kind of like you have controlled NE, in a sense, which is like it's the same thing with me with TI. Like I love TI, but don't place me in a room with like mathematicians where I have to like, or I have to like do like engineering or something like that, where it's just really really advanced. Like give me a spot where I can like have a conversation and be able to pick things apart in that sense and ask questions, or just study up on it, but not something that's like, oh, my life is like depending on it. But with you, one of the examples that I was going to give are just a few where SI and NE polarity, SI dominant NE polarity like really sticks out with Chante is, okay, first example that comes to mind. When I was on my way here to Philly, she knew what time that the train was supposed to be arriving. But then she asked, like, okay, so is everything still running on time? It's like, well, actually, they just announced that, we have to go a little bit slower for whatever reasons. And we were supposed to leave at 12:05 from the DC station, but instead we left at like 12:20 or something. I don't know. And then she was like she sent the straight face. And then she was asking me like, well, like ask somebody like how late you guys are gonna be, and like she was trying to get me, like she said, like check your GPS, it measures the speed of the train. And I'm a judger too, but because I'm not like SI user and I'm an SE user, so I'm more of like in the moment, relaxed, NI, whatever, I can, I guess, sometimes be a little bit passive about different things. So we kind of like are judges in different areas. So for me, in other situations, is when I'd probably be like, okay, we need to do this, while she would probably be like, yo, relax. But this is not one of those situations. She was like, well, ask, like, how late are you guys going to be for this? And, she likes to know the exact timing.
First of all, I need to know because I had other things to do, and so it was going to throw me off if he wasn't on time or whatever. And I just need to know so that way I knew what time to leave the house to do what I needed to do before, I met up with you.
Mm-hmm. So she's a very, very punctual person. You had your ice skating event, if you don't mind me mentioning, and that was supposed to be at 7. We were on the train and everything around 7:10, and she was like, once again, like just having like a slight like anxiety, like, oh, we're gonna be so late, and this, that. And I understood, I respect and admire that about her, that she's somebody who tries to be punctual and all of that. And that's something that we should all adopt, She likes to be early for things.
To be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late, and to be late is unacceptable.
Yes, I've heard that quote.
Yes.
And you guys should adopt it. I told her, like, I do honestly respect that you're trying to, like, make it on time and everything. But hey, people will understand. I mean, first of all, you are the birthday girl, so you're supposed to sort of kind of, I guess, arrive fashionably late. Now, 9 o'clock late would have been a problem. But, 7:20 or so, that's not as bad. This is what was interesting to me. So she said, well, I don't really mind, like, about other people. I mind about myself. And I think that was... what was it?
You didn't tell them what you said first.
Yeah, go ahead. I thought I just did. You can.
No, you said what I said in response to you. But you mentioned, like, oh, like, people, I'm sure they're, like, fine. Just...
Yeah, no, go ahead and tell me.
No,
tell them.
Like, okay. I'm just not good at telling it like you are.
It's okay.
Yeah. So he was saying, like, oh, I'm sure people will understand or don't mind or something like that. I can't even remember. But then I said, go ahead.
Well, she said that she doesn't really care, or not care, I don't know the exact words, but she pretty much implied that it's not about them, it's about me. Like, I wanted to be on time. It doesn't really matter about them in that sense. And I saw that immediately, like, FI versus FE.
So I was saying, like, I mean, I don't care if they're okay with me being late. Like, I wanted to be on time.
Yeah, exactly. So when I'm running late about things, then that's how I think. I'm like, well, dang, like, are the people, like, bored, or are they, like, thinking things of me? Like, I'm very, like, other people focused. So it's not necessarily like an internal thing, like, well, I want to be, whatever.
That was ugly.
It's just like, oh, as long as they're okay with it, as long as other people in the situation understand it, then okay, cool, everything's good. That doesn't mean, like, take my time, but it just means, like, okay, I'm not going to stress about it as much. But for her as an FI user, it was like, well, other people aren't really, like, a factor. This is like a morality thing, or this is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, that's kind of like what I was interpreting. Like, this is about me. Like, this is something that I want to hold on to. This is a value of mine, to be on time, whether other people are going to understand or not. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I thought that was also interesting, and I think that that's why ISTJs can be very loyal and dependable oftentimes, because they have this inner type of industriousness and consistency that they try to uphold. So you've been watching, or trying to watch, Jane the Virgin. What do you think? And it's very interesting because Raphael is ENFJ.
Honestly, I ain't watched it in a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Raphael is ENFJ, like me. And then Petra Solano, his wife/ex-wife, depending on the season, is ISTJ. And what would you say about their dynamic? Or what would you say about Petra as a whole, and how do you relate to her? You can answer any of those three conversations.
I do not relate to her at all.
She definitely does.
She's very manipulative.
Okay, not in that sense.
Very mean, and she does anything for money, which is not me. at all.
Okay.
So I don't relate. But according to him, Petra and the bull, what's the name?
Raphael.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Raphael. That's our dynamic apparently, but I don't see it. Maybe I just haven't watched it enough.
Yeah.
But I just I guess I believe you. I guess there are some aspects, but I don't know.
Well, for those of you who watch Jane the Virgin, Raphael and Petra have this like love-hate relationship where they really do. Raphael does care about her, and Petra does care about Raphael, but they seem to have these misunderstandings oftentimes. They value different things, and they communicate in different ways. There was literally an episode where they were trying to learn better communication, and Raphael was teaching her.
Did I see this?
I think so. And Raphael was teaching her about tone, and then so he was literally like, he had her sitting down. He's like, Petra, I don't like your tone and how you said this. And she's usually like a abrupt kind of like just say things like how it is type of person. And in my honest opinion, so are you. But you're in a good mood today. I feel like with our dynamic, oftentimes that's something that I'm always talking to you about is tone. And I think that's another thing for TE users in general. They're not that, I think that they're not really keen to like tone. They just say things like how it is. I have an aunt I have two aunts actually who are STJs. And I actually spoke to one of my aunts one time, and I was like, I don't know why you always talk like that. Like, you can't just be like, oh, hey, can you put the suitcase there or something, please? Like, it's always like an order, a command. Looking at Harold Cooper from The Blacklist, he's an ESTJ. He's not always the most polite either. And, they're working in the task force, so there's a difference. But then again, look at Aram, who's an ISFJ. And he's like, oh, can you please do this? And, like, he uses a lot of, like, manners and everything. But Harold's like, get there. That's not going to happen. He just gives these direct orders. So then even speaking of the Blacklist, all right, how do you relate to Elizabeth Keene? Who, once again, Raymond Reddington is an ENFJ. So we have a lot of these ENFJ, ISTJ dynamics.
I should really catch up on these shows.
Probably.
Because I don't know. I mean, I would say she's detail-oriented, right?
Yeah.
So I think I relate to her in that way. But other than that, I don't really know. You have to remind me.
She's not that great at catching on to patterns, and that's what Reddington helps her out with and everything. She's not very people-oriented or people-focused, so Reddington helps her out with that.
So wait, so she's not good at patterns?
No, but she gets a lot better with working with Reddington, because Reddington teaches her how to catch on to pattern recognition.
That's interesting, because I feel like I'm someone who looks for patterns to learn things.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Like neuroscience.
Okay.
And like organic chemistry and physics. Those are all subjects that I did really well in. That other people think is hard, but for me it wasn't really hard. It was like I was able to find a pattern, and I just kept using it, and it just worked. So it's easy or simple because there's not too much variation, and so you can find loopholes, if you will, so that when you find that pattern, you're able to kind of do things quicker or understand things quicker without having to go through this whole process. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like that's a great example of the SI-NE axis, where especially the part where she said, like, use that over and over again. So since she's NE seeking as an NE inferior, then she's looking for these patterns in the external world and everything. But then when she finds the pattern, it's not like a consistent search for different patterns. She finds a pattern that works, and she continues to use that same pattern because she's found one that works. While with maybe like a reverse, an NE user, it's like, okay, now that I've tried that way, I would want to now try something else. So they won't want to keep on following that path.
My thing though is, in those type of subjects, would there be other ways? You know what I mean? If it's just a fact, like in neuroscience, it's like this is that, like, you know what I mean? It's like this is this pathway, and that pathway doesn't change.
Yeah, honestly, I get what you mean. I'm not really too familiar with neuroscience,
okay.
So I can't really speak on that. But maybe somebody
in physics.
All of these things that you're mentioning are the stuff that I was like, whoa. So when you said, it was very easy for me in school, I'm just continuing to feel incompetent.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there might be other ways to do things, but I just feel like if it's something like, it's dealing with like equations, and so equations are just always, you know what I mean? Like, it's just always that. It doesn't really change. That's why everybody in the world can speak the same language when it comes to like numbers, because it doesn't change at all. You know what I mean? I mean, I know that there are different like methods to get there and stuff. If you're talking about like using, you know what I mean, like different, I don't know what they call them, but like for kids, like they teach like multiplication or like how to do all this stuff through different methods and stuff, you know what I mean? Where it's like I learned it a different way growing up. And so, yeah, I can see the variation in that, but like in the more like concrete stuff of like, let's say neuroscience, like I just wonder what other variations there are, because I mean, yeah, I only do it one way, or I find a pattern and I stick to it with those things, but I don't know if I can objectively see other ways, so I'm just curious if there are.
Yes, y'all NE users over there, be sure to comment, because I'm very interested in seeing what you guys come up with. They always surprise me with things that I just would have never even considered thinking about. Like, oh wow, you know what? I guess that does make sense. Like how you'd find a way in that sense. I think that we should actually do a live stream now.
Why?
Yeah, so that people can actually chime in and ask questions about us and everything. And I'd tell them like, well, we just recorded the ISTJ video and everything, but now they can ask you questions and everything, and it'll prime more towards that. So I think that's what we're gonna do. Alright everyone, well thank you for tuning in to this video. We're actually now, I've just decided, on the spot.
First of all, you gonna tell them that?
Yeah.
Why? Because I didn't even agree to that yet.
Yeah, you did. We're about to have a live stream right now, so clearly you guys have probably already saw the live stream, since we're gonna have it right now in real time, and this is gonna be like an edited video, but now you know kind of what happened before that happened. So thanks in advance for tuning in, and thank you for interviewing or being interviewed. Do you have any last words?
Last
and
words.
Advice for other ISTJs out there?
I don't have any advice. You have to ask me a question for me to give you advice, because I don't really know what you...
That'll be on the live stream.
What you need. But last words. This was pretty cool. I enjoyed this. And hopefully I can do another one sometime.
All right. Cool. Done.